Excuse me. We are live. It is Sunday. We are continuing with our Sunday mic check, and yeah, um, hope everyone is well. It's been a long week to say the least. Just as you're joining, um, go ahead and throw your comments in the comment section. Say hi. Um, I'm trying out a new setting, so if you can't hear me or anything, just let me know. I wanted to be more hands free instead of having this microphone just like all in front of my face the whole time. I'm trying a boom mic. It's like just out of frame, so it's like right there to see if that's any better. That would give me a little bit more freedom. Um, yeah, so it's like we're still waiting for people to trickle in. I'm realizing now that we didn't necessarily make it official. I know we kind of left it open ended as far as how we were gonna handle Sunday mic check going forward, but I think we're gonna take it a month at a time. So I will be here Sunday mornings through June, and we'll continue that way. So Shannon, thank you so much. Welcome. Is the audio okay? Can you hear everything? I'm not sure if you came in just before or after, but I'm changing up the mic situation a little bit. I wanted to give, in fact, I don't even know why I need these, um, only if someone else is on, but I'm trying to be wireless, hands free kind of deal right now. So yeah, playing around with the setup, trying to refine this whole thing that we got going on. We're definitely continuing the conversation series. So on Monday, we'll be on discussing our most recent episode, which is our final in the Truth series. Sounds a little different, but I can hear fine. Yeah, it's gonna sound a little different. So I'm interested to go back and listen to the first few minutes of this and just see kind of how it goes. It's not it doesn't have probably the bass or the warmth of the usual podcast mic that I use, but I don't know, different medium. It should be a different audio, and I'm trying to test all the equipment I have. And I've been having this really nice boom mic sitting here for a few months now, and I haven't really had a chance to use it. So I figure, why not Sunday mic check? This is a time for connecting and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, what a week it's been. I hope all of you that are listening or tuning in are doing well. Um, we're Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure what to say. I'm not sure if I should say anything, but I do know that we are doing our best to highlight other people's voices. If you haven't checked out our anti-racist resource list, I hope that you check that out. And we're ever expanding that, so that's going to be a ongoing, evolving page on our website. Um, so yeah, uh, Rajiv is watching. I got your like. Welcome. I don't know if you're watching, but I know you liked me, so thank you. Yeah, so I'm trying to. One of the things I want to do too is Sunday mic check is kind of refine the process. Janelle, hello, welcome. Trying to refine the whole thing. So there's this podcast I listen to where once a week they do. They call it the water cooler, and they just kind of segment it out into parts. Like, what am I reading? What am I watching? What am I listening to? What am I doing? Um, so I don't know. Maybe we'll try that because I want this time to be more interactive and more just kind of. I don't want to say light because I know that right now, I don't want to ignore everything that's going on. I don't want it to be, tone deaf to the world around us. But I also know that we are still doing other things in our lives and figuring out how to incorporate all that and balance the tone of culture in our lives. So take everyone's cue on this one. So how is everyone doing? Um, I know that ah, this is going to be helpful. So we have someone joining us. Let me put this on so I can hear them when they pop on. Uh, the esteemed Reverend
Hey,
Brian is.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think your voice might be a little bit messed up. Let's see if mine's coming through.
I'm doing a new mic setup, so I'm not using.
I think it's really quiet.
Yeah,
And I gotta tell you, I come here in the morning to hear your voice, Jeff. Also, here, let me listen to my own. Yeah, your voice is way too quiet. And
it's
like,
quiet on here, but I think
no, it's like I'm
it's got.
watching Facebook and it's
Is
not it's not great. No. But also, um, yeah, it's noticeably quiet now that I'm on. And you know what, Shannon? Everything is noticeably quiet whenever I'm speaking. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna let you speak, and I'm gonna fix my audio real quick. So
Hear that again? I just want to hear what was
I'm gonna give you the platform. I'm gonna fix the audio real quick.
amazing.
I'll be back.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. He's gonna fix his audio, so I'll hold down the fort. I was gonna tell him, is our barber shops and stuff open where you are? Because I could definitely use one. Not gonna lie, I'm a little bit too scared to go at it myself. You know, give myself bangs or something like that. Um, yeah, I'll. Um, good morning, William.
Is that better?
Janelle, yeah, the wizard beard. It's too much. Wait, say that again, Jeff.
Is that better?
Keep talking.
Better now. Better now.
It's a little bit better, definitely.
Okay.
It's not as tinny, but it's a little bit better. It could be a little bit higher, but you got your hair done Tuesday. Very nice. Yeah. I just came on to say hello. I have a coffee hour with my church every Sunday at 10:30, so I'm gonna go see them. But I wanted to see you all. Is this my first? I think this might be my first mic check that I actually made it to. I've tried to every time and never quite was able to on the camera. And I came across, this is really cool. I came across the anti-racist resource list, Jeff, that I was sending you all. And it basically, for anyone watching, I know we're all over the place when it comes to our own development and where we are. And there's this really cool resource list. Like we have one on our website, but there's one I came across that kind of stages it in terms of development. And I'll post a link to it before I leave. So this is just kind of a, show up and, leave kind of thing. But there's a resource list that says, if you feel this way on the left side, here are the resources that are good for you. Here's a step you can take. And it recognizes that we're all at different places. So I'll post that. Really cool, really helpful. And also helpful for some of us to look around and look back on our own journey and be like, yeah, I was definitely at a different place before, and look ahead and say, wow, it would be really cool if I could get to that place in the future. So I'll be posting that. I think it's helpful. All right, Jeff, let me hear your voice. I want to hear.
It's probably a difference, I'm sure. I turned it up a little bit more. I'm not sure if that's helpful.
It's still a little bit quiet, I think. Let me see.
Did you disable in your audio settings? Sorry, everyone. We're just gonna,
Well, this is a mic check after all. You know what I mean?
That's right. We're literally doing a mic check. We just went super meta. So in your audio file, the audio settings, Alan, did you uncheck disable audio processing?
I don't know. It's not super. It's just a different quality. I think you're coming in through a wrong mic or something.
Well, I'm coming through a new mic.
It's quiet. It's a new mic called the tin can.
See, it's right here. You see it peeking in through the.
Oh, hey! Fun fact: this has nothing to do with anything, but in the movie Thor, one of the Thor movies, there's a mic dip. I watched it in the middle of the theater, and I was like, "Wow, they spent how many millions of dollars and they still get things wrong. That's awesome. There's hope for all of us.
Yeah, but by the time that stuff hits video, they edit
Right.
it out CG.
Yeah.
But
Same
yeah,
thing with Irenicast.
we
Just
don't have
letting you
that
know.
technology here.
We edit out all the embarrassing parts.
Oh yes, post production is our friend.
Definitely. Out in Man of Constant Sorrow. Oh, is that well, what movie did they have that in? Oh brother, where art thou?
I'm not sure
It's
if I know what that is.
I could break out into it, but the beard would definitely help. Constant Sorrow.
Oh.
It's from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That's a great movie based on some classical literature. Pretty cool. Yeah, okay. So I don't know how to help you with your mic, unfortunately. You'll have to play around with that a little bit. But it is
Yeah,
a
no,
little
it's
better.
just all volume. I'm sure this was a test. I wasn't sure I was gonna. I was anticipating be alone, so it's a pleasant surprise. You coming on here, so I figured I'll just test something random. But
Jeff, with all of us who love you out there, you're never alone. Ever. Right,
I'm definitely.
everybody? Let's see a heart for Jeff. I can't drink my coffee at the same time as you because then it seems like, I don't know.
In stereo a little bit.
Yeah. How's everyone doing this morning? You resting up? You know what's really cool? I had a friend named Ruth. She went to a protest, and they had said at the end, they said, when you go home and you lay down on your bed and you're thinking at night, the work is not over because resting is your work. We can't continue this if we don't rest and we don't get the strength we need to continue from day to day. And it was a really cool moment, I think, for the whole crowd who was listening. God is watching. It's funny. There was this children's book where like there's like a really scared kid in bed, and it said "God is watching" was the name of the book. And it's like that's a reason to be afraid for sure. Hanging in there.
Shannon, hanging in there. Enjoyed watching Alan and Brian's Facebook Live of some protests.
Oh my goodness. I mean, we could talk about that. I only have another 5 minutes, but like one thing I've noticed in my town and in towns across California, at least, and probably all over the nation, is that there's always like these counter protesters showing up recently who are trying to defend their town or something like that, and they're increasing tensions between protesters and these kind of like vigilantes who are trying to get justice or whatever. And I personally ran into that, and it was it's something I've never really dealt with, I guess, even though it definitely was a transformative thing to go through that. To experience fear in like an incredibly white space, to walk through it. I mean, I've only been afraid. Now I'm going to just get really super deep. I don't know if this is the mic check is the place for it, but to
mic check is the place for wherever you're at.
Oh my God. Then I am like, I don't know. I've only been scared of whiteness, to be frank, a few times. One time when it was a guy carrying a duffel bag and dressed like he was, ready to shoot or something, and like with a big trench coat. It was right after some of the mass shootings, and he was walking through Sacramento in the old district, and I remember feeling very scared because of that. It was the only other time in my whole life that whiteness like was unsafe for me. And then in this protest, walking through the crowd of folks, and they were all white, who were there to defend their idea of, I don't know, it added up to being menacing against the protesters. That's my opinion, of course, but walking through that and then being asked a bunch of questions, like, it changed me, man. Like, now I'm seeing how white, like, just one tiny little taste of what like white spaces are like. That's, of course, that's a really long conversation for folks who may not be ready to have that, but yeah, it changed me for sure. And so now I'm seeing things a little bit differently, asking some harder questions, and and learning to sit with it a little bit longer. So that's something that I'm working on right
Right.
now. We have some
I
more
would.
comments. Jeff isn't alone because God is there. Well, that's great.
That's a matter of opinion.
Wow.
Janelle resting from anti-racism team meeting I got put in charge of. That's a heavy thing to be put in charge of. Need to hibernate for a week. We have much to do. We do have much to do. I think Alan, along
Definitely.
with what you were just saying, as obviously, I mean, our podcast has documented this, but our growth and our movement into a certain direction, and it's easy to get to a place where you feel like, oh, I've arrived, I got it. And I think it's like you're saying, moments like these, experiences like these, that help us realize, no, we don't.
Right.
And
We're just getting started.
right, exactly.
And that's one thing I'm really like sensitive to right now is that how do I balance not making it about me, not making my action about me, even though it is about me in the sense that like I'm growing as a person, but ultimately it's not about me. It's about people who are facing violence and brutality and who
Right.
like need justice and deserve justice. So how do I balance that? So I'm somewhere on that developmental stage. I'm not, I have not arrived. And I think a lot of times we're going to have to go back and revisit other stages probably. But one question I'm asking myself is how do I stay engaged when the news cycle is done? Whenever there's stuff that's passed, whenever, the protests stop, how do I continue the journey of being anti-racist and like sitting with my own complicity in building spaces that are just not safe for my friends, who enter those spaces. So that's the question for me is how do we make this a lifetime thing of solidarity, of like, the beauty of doing life together in open and honest ways that doesn't infringe on the sacredness and individuality of other people, but respects them. Those are like lifelong questions that I think that we will have to be asking forever. And so I'm hoping to like digest this and like put it into me in some way that helps set me on a trajectory of growth. Like you've talked about a lot, Jeff.
I was thinking about that a lot yesterday. I mean, I was doing dishes, girls were playing Minecraft, and just thinking about, I'm already seeing people talk like when things get back to normal. We're starting to get back to normal, and I think that's the problem. And I'm thinking we're coming up to an election cycle, and I'm going through my head of all the election debates, not even just the presidential debates, but the debates for local congressmen or mayors or whatever, and how superficial these questions are. And we have to stop asking what you stand for and start asking how are you going to stand for it. Like if we are not going to pull specific policy out of people, like if you've seen some of the interviews recently with Trump, which they're usually a mess anyway, but when asked what's the plan, there's never any transparency as far as, no, here's the plan. Or even just, I don't have a plan, but here are the people I'm going to be talking to help me develop a plan, because they know this area and they know where they're at. And then as we come up with the plan, we will make it known to everyone. And I think we really need to hold our politicians accountable. I think all these companies and media outlets that have, posted their social media with solidarity and all that kind of shit, like they better hold accountable too when they're airing these debates and everything like that, when they're picking out their producers and directors and actors and all of that, all these places that are putting out these superficial supports of solidarity. We need to hold them accountable with our dollars.
And they matter. I mean, like I'm just as quick as anyone to be like, wanting to hold people accountable and keep people, make sure that they're not, doing the hypocritical thing of holding up a sign and then tear gassing peaceful protesters on the other side. Like I'm all for that. And I also want to appreciate that, like, there are folks who've been in this fight for a really long time, and like any steps are signs of like they're hard fought. They're not stuff that's come cheap for them personally. But I'm with you in the sense that has to be a beginning. It can't just be, yeah, right. And so maybe there's a way to find rest, like rest in the tension of the moment, rest in the growing. Like, what if that's our new normal? What if we as a people were like, hey, we're going to learn how to feel out what it is that like we are as a public. And that's going to be our place of rest. And the new normal is stretching and growing. And we're going to go through seasons or whatever, but that's going to be our baseline from now on, is that we're like discovering ourselves in a huge way as a society. And I wrote this down in a status, but it's something that's been on my mind, is like, so many people have paid a down payment with their lives to this point. Like they've made deposits in generations past. People have given like everything to have these conversations come up, and here they are. This is the moment where stuff is as coalesced, and we're like, we're gonna see it through as this generation. We're gonna like put in the work. Like it's possible.
I think it's possible too, but I also think it's a big ship to turn, and
right.
I know that it's easy to get into that place when you're not seeing the protests on TV anymore. Oh, we solved it. I mean, that's what we lived in. We solved racism for decades.
I know.
Because Martin Luther King handled it.
Right. Yeah.
So
I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry, but there's just a lot of people that have said that, over my lifetime, that racism has been fixed. Yeah.
And I think that at least for me, growing up in California, mostly it's different in terms of that. And it's not to say that it doesn't exist, but it's certainly, I feel like, easier to think that here in some parts, depending on, I don't know.
Because our racism is like socially acceptable or invisible or whatever. And one thing that the last thing I'll say, and this is, I don't know why I always bring up aliens or whatever. I have to lately, I just have to bring them up. I was asking a friend, I was like, because there's like these memes of like aliens being like, all right, we're next for this moment, because there's like pandemic and this. I think even like our ability to go back to normal is profound. Even if like aliens had visited the planet this next week, we go back to living normally a week later. Like I truly believe that. And so I feel like our ability to return to like experience the elasticity of growth and promise, and then just snap back to where we were and stay in like life as we've always done it, is really powerful. And so just want to encourage everyone who's doing a little bit longer, who's trying to stretch a little bit longer, to go a little bit further, to make that the new normal, to embrace not being right, to embrace like solidarity with people who are different than us or different than you, and to work for justice. That like, that's just so commendable. And so keep going, man. And you know what's funny? I know I'm getting a lot of things wrong. That's the thing that scares me the most. I know as a leader I am getting things wrong, and it scares me. But you said a long time ago, Jeff, that sometimes you just have to show your butt. I'm not going to say the bad word that you actually said.
It wasn't that long ago. I said show ass.
That's what it was. You have to be willing to be wrong, and that is something that like I suck at. Like I am not good at being comfortable with being wrong, because it is such a it's a hard thing for me
in public, like what we do here to if we said something in the past, like an episode comes up and it's like, the tendency is, oh, well, let's just delete it and then no one will know. But I don't know if that's the best solution.
Right. Janelle commented the thing about NFL. I totally agree. If the NFL wants to go back and back pay Kaepernick, that's great. Like if they want to go make things right, that's awesome. But, just saying we were wrong, that's a great start. But it's, it's a little too late for the years that have been lost. So I'm not necessarily an NFL fan, but, that's maybe I shouldn't be speaking to something that I'm not a part of the community of with the NFL.
Yeah, I don't watch the foosball very often.
Oh, my goodness. Don't do that. Don't isolate our NFL fans out there. Much love. If you guys watch your blood sports, it's okay. I'm with you. All right, I have to go, but I love you all, and there's so much more that we'll be talking about, and I'll see you guys. Are we doing something this week?
We have our mic check, but I thought you were going to be gone.
Oh.
I mean, not continuing the conversation.
Turns out I might be there.
Okay.
I have to be doing work for the doctorate stuff right now, and I can't take off to the mountains like I wanted to, so I'll be around. And I'll probably hop on.
So Alan may or may not be in our continuing conversation tomorrow. He may be late again. We don't know. We'll see.
Show up just in case. In
That's
case
right.
I went to go cut my own hair, just so you can see what it looks like.
I'm telling you, it's the way to go. Just do it.
Yeah,
Just go back to
just
the.
do it.
It'll grow back.
All right, everybody. All right, I'll see you later.
All right, Al. Thanks for
Thanks.
joining in.
Absolutely.
Have a good one. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm going to take these off now because I don't need to listen to Alan. And Janelle Mullet. Shannon, thank you so much for joining us. Have fun. Tell Pastor Casey I said hello and that he is amazing. Janelle, going back to one of your comments, you were talking about how there are plenty of people in the South, even academic liberals, who think they helped solve racism back in the 60s and 70s. I've done my part. It's over. I think that there's a lot. We tend to think it's not, but there's still a lot of racism in, progressive or liberal or left-leaning circles. It's unfortunate. So how has everyone else been doing, regardless of what's happening in the world? Anyone? When we putting together the resource list, I think we're trying to craft it for stuff that we've actually that have been helpful to us, as opposed to just throwing everything out there that we've heard about that we haven't read ourselves. And one of the things that I really, obviously I love is the medium of film. And I picked up a book that I read years ago when I was my last position at a church. My official title was Director of Discipleship. So what that was essentially Christian education director. I made sure that Sunday school happened, and I also then, taught and discipled the adults. But every summer I would do a class series on something related to film. So I did, I'm blanking. I did a Jesus through the history of film. So we went through and watched clips and various progression of how Jesus has been portrayed on film. And then just the history of film in general. And during this time, I was just picking up all these books on film. I have this huge stack on film and religion and all that kind of stuff. And one of the ones that's on the resource list that I also came across, I don't know if you can see it, or if is it backwards? Oh no, I guess. What movies teach about race? And it's actually a fairly recent book. I think it was put together just before the 2016 election. So it's fairly recent, but it's really goes through the history of film, particularly on how the Black communities are misrepresented in film and the archetypes that developed. And it's just a really powerful reminder of how important, especially in our culture, how important representation is in our entertainment and the stories that we tell. I don't even like saying entertainment. I mean, some stuff is, but these are our stories. These are our mythologies. And we have a really horrible history of these archetypes, and I think that that's one of the many things that need to change. Janelle, my kid is struggling with processing separation. A co-parent is currently custodial parent, so I've been having to help my kid process. Why can't you come back and live with us, mommy? Emotions this week. It's been rough, man. I'm so sorry, Janelle. I can't imagine how difficult that is. My heart's with you. I'm very sorry. Kids, whatever circumstance we find ourselves in as parents, it's certainly a reflection. It always hits home. Like, it really causes us to look internally and yeah, I mean, all that happening on top of everything else going on in the world. My heart goes out to you. I'm so sorry. So I hope in the midst of some of that, you're finding some moments, stealing some moments of brevity, of rest. How about everyone else? Anything else that you're reading, watching that's either encouraging you or fueling the fire of what you're going to do next and how you're going to move forward? This interface. Sorry, just phased out there for a little bit. Yeah. So I've been rereading that book. It's been really good, really helpful. Um, haven't done much else. I had this really fun. Good, you know. I've had a lot of clarity as far as my actual life path too. So kind of an emotional roller coaster this week. Wow, that is a lot. It's been, everything in certain moments feels so surreal this week in terms of everything that's happening and managing that internally on how we cope with some of those things. I Last night I had a reunion of sorts. So when I was growing up in youth group, I had a pretty solid core group of friends, and we all recently decided we'd reconnect via a Zoom chat, and it was very interesting. It was wonderful. It was so good to kind of reconnect with everyone and see how everyone's doing, and it was so uh, encouraging to see how we all kind of were in this evangelical bubble for so long, and how we all kind of progressed to these different areas, and how we kind of, I wouldn't say we all landed in the same spot, but we certainly, it's been 25 years since we all actually worked together, and it was like nothing. Um, Barbara's still staying at home. Yeah, uh, it's hard in the midst of all this to remember we're still in a pandemic. I went for a drive yesterday, and a lot of people, I mean, depending upon areas of my county, some people it was 50-50 that were having their masks on, and because things are starting to slowly open up around where I live. But yeah, I'm still staying home as much as possible as well. It is I'm personally worried about you know a spike now that kind of, not just, and I, not just the protests obviously, because that's well worth the getting out there, but even before everything was happening related to that, I was always, okay, things are going to open up. We still have a lot to go through, and the pandemic still that's in front of us, and I'm hoping that we don't see too much of a spike because of things opening up again and people being careless. Which, again, I want to point out, I do not uh, consider the people in the protest being careless. I think that that's a worthwhile reason to get out there for sure. Caitlin, the cross and the lynching tree. Oh yeah, so check that YouTube out. That book also super super important. So yeah, so thank you for providing the link for that as well. I appreciate that. Caitlin, how are things over there in Atlanta? I'm sure um, it's a whole different vibe there. I mean, I haven't been there, and I've only read reports about you know some of your leaders and all that kind of stuff. So I hope you and your husband are well, and your family. It's so many days I've just forgotten about. Like, I went out, I had to go to the store a couple days ago, and I just forgot my mask. And I get to the car, I'm like, oh yeah, we're we're still in the midst of a pandemic, and I haven't checked the latest numbers for COVID, but it will right now. This is live search right now. Yes, I mean it's the overall numbers in the United States still haven't surpassed the peak when we started to open up, so that's good. Hopefully that trend continues. Okay, good. That's good to hear, Caitlin. Amazing leadership, great energy here, but also still a lot of ignorance around. Yeah, I can imagine. I feel like that's everywhere. Even some spots that we feel like we were maybe immune to that. That we're just not. Um, Janelle, my friend, works at a beach vacation rental place in Daytona Beach. It's been crazy there. First week off furlough, he had someone tell him they didn't need to wear masks because they were protected by Jesus. Yeah, you know, I have thoughts about that. I mean, I grew up Pentecostal, so this that aspect of Jesus protecting and praying for healing and all that kind of stuff, I have very mixed and strong feelings about, which I don't want to get too much into it off the cuff because I don't want to say something I'll regret. But all that to say is, I think if we believe in some sort of supernatural healing, then there is balance in that because we're also here and subject to the, yeah, I don't know. I'm just astounded by the rhetoric that's out there, and I'm having a hard time. I'm trying to be measured in my approach to everything because I think it's easy. Everyone has an individual reason or case why they're right, and it's never it becomes the only place where people start with their information, right? So, well, like with Candace Owens and her recent statement, oh well, here's an African American person who doesn't believe in all the racism and Black Lives Matter, and it becomes this proof for people to stay in their ignorance. And I think that we do a really horrible job of moving beyond our initial impressions and moving beyond our own cognitive bias, which I know there are a lot of reasons for that. So I think it's important to step out. Um, Said friend is an atheist. Oh, well, that is a. I mean, that makes it even. Well, I think even atheism can be fundamental, but clearly there's that dichotomy between atheists and evangelicals, and a lot of the evangelicals' thought on atheism is more hypothetical than anything else. I mean, watch God's Not Dead. Well, don't watch God's Not Dead. But if you ever had to, uh, that is, yeah. Janelle tokenism at it is the worst. It really is. It is. Because everyone will have a meme or example or a picture that usually is not very well researched to say exactly what they're doing. And I mean, now more than any other time, we really need to understand and have more education. And I wish that people were more thoughtful with the stuff that they put on their platforms. And I get it. I mean, I get that part of how we receive things is through story, is through kind of pulling at the heartstrings and creating a place where we can relate to a certain extent. But I also think if we don't balance that with solid information, or that the information, the research that we've done doesn't inform those smaller bits of content or that meme, then I think we're running into a lot of problems. And I mean, it's not like we can footnote a meme. Well, maybe we should. Maybe that's part of it. Janelle, prayer never fails. Yeah, I have thoughts on prayer too, but maybe that's another episode. I think we did an episode on prayer a while back. Maybe we need to revisit that with the current cast of characters we have on Irenicast. I think that would be really interesting. Sometimes, some days, I can pick out and know and be very clear in my head about, oh, this episode we talked about this and remember exactly what we talked about. And then some days, especially the more episodes that we have come out, some days it's just a blur. Like, we mentioned it in passing. Did we mention it in passing? Was it a whole episode? All that kind of stuff. So anytime you run across an idea or something for an episode, let us know. And that'll give us some fuel to kind of your mom and dad were an extra in a movie called Prayer Never Fails. I have not heard of that one. I don't know if many of you know, I do have another podcast. It's on hiatus, but hopefully it's going to be coming back soon, actually, maybe even next month. And it's Divine Cinema. It started with Irenicast, where myself and two separate co-hosts, Adam and Dylan, we did some reviews of bad Christian movies and all that kind of stuff. And we spun it off to its own podcast called Divine Cinema. And in that podcast, we couldn't bear the thought of doing only bad Christian movies. It would just wreck our soul after a while. So we decided to make it a show surrounding around any faith themed movie. So we've done a variety of different shows or reviews of movies on that podcast. So we did I think the first one we did was Left Behind, the one with Nicolas Cage, and we've done some other bad ones. But then we also did Calvary, which is a 2014 Irish film, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. We also did Scorsese's Silence. We did Dogma, Kevin Smith's Dogma, because all the themes around that. So it's a fun show, and I'm looking forward to it. We have 2 recorded that will get out, but we've done all the God That's Not Dead series, and so I'm always on the lookout for stuff. There's a movie right now that we're talking about. It's on Amazon. It's called Velocipaster. You just got to check it out. Just find the trailer for Velocipaster, and I'm looking forward to seeing that one. But yeah, no, I have not heard of Prayer Never Fails, the movie. Super low budget, but Corbin Bernstein is in it, and my dad met him. Oh, that's right. Yeah, he has. I think we've talked about this before, but he kind of has a run in Christian movies. He even wrote some of them. One of the ones we did before we spun off Divine Cinema, we reviewed Christian Mingle. I think it was one of the last ones. I think it was like episode 98 or 99 of Irenicast, and he was in that. And that was the first time I'd seen him in that kind of movie. And I was like, why is he in this? And then I looked it up and saw that he does a lot of these kind of films. And I was a little bit blown away because disappointed, maybe. William, did you ever review the Omega Code? No, we did not. But I remember when this came out, it was a huge deal for the Christian community, because it was put out by TBN. I want to say 98, maybe even early 2000s, and they wanted to get the jump on the Left Behind series, and I'm pretty sure, and it was the first major film like that got like the theatrical release, and it was put on by TBN, and it was, I want to say it was the same year that Arnold Schwarzenegger's End of Days movie came out. So it's this weird dichotomy between that, and I remember thinking the quote unquote salvation scene in End of Days with Arnold Schwarzenegger was way better than the one in Omega Code, because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I have this memory of the person who gets, the main character who gets saved in that film. It's almost like this like fairy dust is sprinkled on him from heaven, and there's it's really a bad movie. But maybe we should review that one. I will put that on the list once we get up and rolling again. Janelle, something about a basketball coach getting in trouble before praying before. Oh gosh, the sports movies. So along the lines, Janelle, of like is it the Facing the Giants movies? One of those Christian films. Yeah, they always got to set themselves up to be the victim in the narrative in a lot of those films. And I wish more of them were like bad good, where you could look through it and be like, oh, this is so bad, but it's so fun to watch. But I've yet to come across one of those. Well, although maybe there might be a couple. That's why I'm looking forward to the Velocipaster, because it looks ridiculous, and like a horror movie. The pastor turns into a dinosaur or something. I don't know. I just know I want to see it. Yeah, pretty much in that genre. Yeah, I never could bring myself to seeing Facing the Giants, and I think the last movie that I saw like that was not like that, but I was still working as a youth pastor in an evangelical church when Fireproof came out, and they had all these marriage materials and stuff like that, and I was just like, oh, that one is a piece of work right there. I have thoughts on Kirk Cameron too, but maybe we'll get into that some other time. William, it's always interesting when a movie about the apocalypse has a sequel. I'm fairly certain there was an Omega Code 2. I'm pretty sure you're right. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing a second part to that, because these things make money. Mostly because churches will buy out theaters and their box office. Like God's Not Dead was probably the biggest proof of that. It made a lot of money. I think it was like a $3 to $5 million budget, and it made like almost 100 million. Crazy, because churches would buy it out. They'd market to the church. They know their audience, and big money makers. We're so persecuted they won't let us pray in government buildings. Right. The worst example of that kind of like they won't let us pray was the second God's Not Dead. That one, whew, that was a piece of work right there, because it was, the teacher just mentioned Jesus and really tried to invoke, if I remember right, Martin Luther King, because she quoted him quoting the Bible or something in class, and it was so bad. And the weird thing about the God's Not Dead movies is they always have these cameos in them. And Newsboys, the Michael Tate version of Newsboys, is always in there. Like there's whatever controversy happens to be happening, there's always a Newsboy concert that's happening at the same time. Just those little moments I have to get some brevity out of because it's ridiculous. I have thoughts on Kirk Cameron as well. Well, he spoke at my college when I was there, and yeah, him and his friend, his Australian friend, that do this evangelism series called The Way of the Master. Anyone ever heard of that? If you haven't, then good on you, because it's pretty bad. William, although this sounds like a joke, I'm honestly wondering if you would consider Angels in the Outfield a faith-based movie. Yeah, I would. I mean, it would be something that I think we would definitely consider for the podcast, at least, because we're holding that faith-based movie thing pretty loosely. For that podcast in particular, we're not really delving too much into the theological aspects. Like, we are all fans of film, so we talk a lot about the filmmaking, and we'll give props where props are due to certain films that put things up there, but we're pretty loose. I mean, we did Dogma, and we have some other ideas coming up forward, and we did this is by the director of Nacho Libre and Napoleon Dynamite. One of the episodes we did was Don Verdeen, and it's about this biblical archaeologist. And yeah, so we're pretty loose with faith-based. So yeah, Angels in the Outfield might be something. I mean, you got some star power there. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Doc Brown himself, Christopher Lloyd. In fact, I just saw a trailer for that movie, and I almost tried to watch it because I kind of liked it. I have fond memories of that. Donald Glover is in. Danny Glover, not Donald Glover. Danny Glover is also in that movie, I think. Yeah, Angels in the Outfield, one of my favorites. Yeah, The Way of the Master. It's not good. It's that whole evangelism approach where you convince someone that they're a liar and that they're a sinner. Are you a liar? No, I'm not a liar. Well, have you lied? Yes. Well, then you're a liar, and therefore you need Jesus. Makes a lot of sense, right? No. Yeah. So probably not. Donald Glover was not bored yet. Way to make us all feel old, Janelle. A remake with Donald Glover would be great to see. Anything with Donald Glover would be great to see. I just did during this quarantine. I rewatched all of Community and I love that show so much. Some parts don't hold up as well, but overall, I really like it. And I know the show definitely was different after Donald left, but I don't think it was bad. In fact, I think the final season that ended up on the Hulu platform, or not Hulu, Yahoo, was underrated. I actually really liked it as far as like an episodic, fun romp into community land. But yeah, I'll see anything that Donald Glover's in. I even watched Solo, and he was in it. He was a wonderful Lando Calrissian. They should have just reworked that whole movie and called it Lando, and it would have been a million times better. But those are just my thoughts. All opinion here. We should now recast all of Angels in the Outfield. Yes. All of what Pierce says. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Chevy Chase anyway, and especially hearing about everything that happened with him in his like behind the scenes and everything. Yeah, it wasn't a fan of that aspect. He's an interesting guy. Angels in the Outfield. Okay, so let's recast it. So are we saying Donald Glover is going to be the coach because he's the general manager of the team there, correct? So then who would play Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character and who would play the new Angel? I know it can be a toxic fandom at some places as well. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of those people get their way. I mean, the Snyder cut of Justice League is coming out, so anyway, sorry, I'm mixing my genres here. This is a progressive Christian podcast, not a film podcast, but I'm just taking the conversation where you all want me to take it. So let's cast Angels in the Outfield. I think this is a good idea. So who's the new Angel? Who's the new Christopher Lloyd in the remake? I know it's been a long time since I've seen the movie as well, so I think we'll just cast the main three leads because I think everyone was pretty much, on brand. I mean, Christopher Lloyd, you get what you get with Christopher Lloyd. He's always going to have that unique way about him. So I think if we're looking for someone with that kind of energy to replace him, I'm trying to remember who played the original foster mom. Now I'm blanking on. Oh, yes. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah, she should be in everything. I loved her ongoing gag on BoJack Horseman. Um, that William is a nice pull. I think that would definitely bring a different energy to it for sure. I like that. I'm thinking about it more and more, and I think it would be good to have a different edge to the Angel because I remember Christopher Lloyd's character being a little bit like it was a kids movie, but a little bit too positive, and there wasn't a lot anything fun about it. It was pretty much like a straightforward, good-hearted angel. But I think Larry David version would be really interesting. Ted Danson, I think that's what you're talking about. The guy who plays that would be a good one too. He's got a nice, sweet way about him. Um, I like Larry David. I do. I think okay. I think that's good. Janelle agrees. Yes, Larry David. So we have Larry David as the angel. We have Donald Glover as the general manager. Who plays the kid? I'm trying to think of good. I don't really know any child actors off the top of my head. I mean, you could bring in Haley Joe Osment from the '90s. Bring him back, but he doesn't look the same these days. He's definitely grown up. I'm trying to think of a child that would be good. I started watching. I don't know why it was on HBO Max, but the Good Boys, that rated R kid comedy, um, and the main kid of the group was pretty funny. I don't know his name. Oh, that's right. Tony Danza was in. He played the old broke down, player who was getting into retirement. That's right. You got to have an old cast member come back. William, you're killing this, man. You got it. Kid from Jojo Rabbit. I've only seen trailers. Jojo Rabbit is on my watch list for sure. I really want to watch that. And I was gonna watch it a couple days ago, but I don't know. I know the premise of it, and I know it just couldn't bring myself to watch it at that point. It wasn't something I wanted to watch. But it's on my list. Instead I went back and watched Taika Waititi's Hunt for the Wilder People is one of his first films, and that was really good. Man, William, I think you got this. Like that all works for me. We've recast it. Um, I speaking of movies and watch lists and stuff, some of the podcasts that I listen to, the film review podcasts that I listen to, one of the main hosts, I always enjoy his opinion, started talking on his show about this social media app. It's called Letterboxd, and essentially it's all just you sign up for your account and you list the movies that you've watched and you can rate them with a 5 star. You can do like a quick review, and basically you just kind of this really cool uh place where you can just talk about movies. And so far, my experience of it, and also listening to him, and I've been on it for about a week now, it's super positive place. Like everyone seems pretty good. It doesn't have that so far. It doesn't have that really like toxic fandom that sometimes certain movies have. And it's a wonderful app. So if you check it out, Letterboxd, if you really love films. And then follow me on there. I'd love to see the films that you're watching. I went through like the whole list and added ones that I've seen. And now I'm going back and kind of, giving star ratings to the ones that are most fresh in my mind. And then I'm putting together my watch list. And it's a fun app. I spent probably way too much time on it this week. And the interface is a little clunky, but the community so far seems to be really, really cool. So check that out, Letterboxd. I think it's Letterboxd, and instead of ed at the end, it's just the D. So I don't know for domain purposes why they did that, but I would definitely check it out. Sweet. Well then, William, I will let you know when Divine Cinema gets kicked off. I don't know if you've listened to that or not, but we've had a lot of fun doing that show, and hopefully we'll get things going. Janelle, I'm watching shows these days, not movies. Yeah, I had a conversation about that with someone else. I feel like that's one thing I'm missing. I'm curious to see how the whole theater is going to go in, because I definitely prefer to watch a movie in a theater, and I will definitely gravitate at home towards some of the amazing television shows that are available. But sometimes I do want to sit down and watch a good movie. Just before all this hit, I finally updated my TV just in time, and it's been nice watching some of that stuff. But I also have my kids at home, so to be real careful about like what I'm watching and the stuff that I really want to see. Uh, Now, The Great, is that a television show? Is that on what's a particular streaming service? Oh, yeah, I just totally realized that I can post a comment on here. So I'm gonna see if this works. I'm gonna put the name of that app I was talking about and see if that is exactly how it's. I'm not sure if that worked. Oh, it looks like it worked. So yeah, Letterboxed. It's on the comments, but you can check it out. Okay, so The Great and The Mighty Boosh. They're both on Hulu. I'll check those out. I'll check out the trailer or whatever and see how that's going. Um, so what is so William? You also agree. What is the Mighty Boosh? Give me a synopsis here. I'd look it up, but we're talking, so I'd rather hear it from you, especially if you're already invested. Um, the Great is a satirical fiction take on Catherine the Great. Oh, okay, that sounds interesting. Am I pronouncing that right? The other one, the Mighty Boosh. Is that it? I haven't. I don't think I've watched any new television shows. I've just been looking for stuff to play in the background because I've been super busy. So I've been rewatching. And Janelle, I know you'll appreciate this, but I've been rewatching IT Crowd, one of my favorite British little sitcoms. Um, oh, Mighty Boosh is a British comedy from the early 2000s. Okay, speaking of British comedies, I'll check that out, and that's also on Hulu. Yeah, both short variety British show following two zookeeper friends. Interesting. Okay. All right. I'm definitely gonna check it out. So that works out. I love the British comedy. I just love some of the British shows in general. I think that they've really set the tone for how we are doing. Shorter seasons, more focused. One of my favorite British television shows is a show called Broadchurch. It's I think it ran for 3 seasons. It has David Tennant in it, and it's about you get through the first season and you feel like, oh, that was a great contained story, and you don't know how they're going to continue on, but they do, and it's wonderful. Like it's beautifully shot wherever they shot it in whatever area that they shot it in. It's beautiful cinematography, the way that they frame things, the way that they tell the story that way, and all the actors are amazing in it. In fact, the one of the actresses in it is the current Doctor Who, and it's wonderful. They did an American remake of it with also good actors, but it was really not good. I think the American version was called Grace Point, and it had the wife from Breaking Bad and Danny Pena, um, and it wasn't as good. Um, Broadchurch is amazing. It's wonderful. Oh my gosh, Moss is in it. Then I'm there. The boss from the IT crowd, the first boss or the second boss, because the second boss is also in What We Do in the Shadows, the television series, and I love him. Anything that he's in. That's right. It's got 2 doctors now. A British version of Seinfeld. I I have such fond memories of Seinfeld, and I'm a little worried to go back and I haven't rewatched it in a while, since a long while, and I just worry that when I go back and watch certain things that they're just not going to hold up. So maybe I should just hold that memory, but we'll see. Because I remember when Friends was out and I loved it. I was watching it all the time every week, and then I went back and rewatched it when it first went on Netflix. I hated it. I don't even know why I spent my time going through the rest of it, but I just did not think it was good at all. It did not hold up. Yes, the one in What We Do in the Shadows. Well, then I'm definitely watching that, The Mighty Boosh. That's on my list because that's some of my favorite actors right there. Okay, I'm putting that on the list. I'm putting it in my phone right now, and I'm gonna watch it this week, and I'll report back for next week's Sunday mic check and let you know what I think of it. Because that sounds good. That sounds wonderful. Season season 1 is more Flight of the Concords. I love Flight of the Concords. Season 2 is more random nonsense. Okay, I'll check it out. I will check it out. Thank you for the recommendations. I appreciate that. That's really good. That is a better comparison. Okay. All right. You've convinced me. You've sold me on the mighty Boosh. I like it. That I don't know why I always forget his name, but he was on an episode of the final season of Community. Played the on the grifting episode. That was kind of like the play on the sting or whatever. But I just love his the rhythm to how he speaks, and I'll watch anything he's in. So, do you think Flight of the Concords was inspired by this show? Interesting. Well, come on, you don't need to convince me anymore. I'm there. I'm in. I'm on board. It's gonna happen. I'm hoping to though also, catch up on some movies from my movie list this week, just to sit down and just enjoy a good film. Really, I'm really into this letterbox thing, and I want to kind of update my list and go through that. I do miss the theater experience though. Adult Swim is based here in Atlanta, and I get to see all of the show murals outside of the building. And the Mighty Boosh is my favorite. Nice. Okay, yeah, there's a lot of film production that happens in Atlanta, and I know for I remember that. I remember that because I remember a few months ago in the news when Georgia passed the anti-abortion bill that a lot of the companies were talking about pulling their production from that particular area. I don't know exactly what came of all that, but a lot of the Marvel films are in Atlanta as well, I believe. A lot of films are filmed there or based there. A lot. Adult Swim just finished the last episode of the current season of Rick and Morty, which I liked this season. I liked it. There's some stuff at the end. There was one episode in particular that just had me rolling. It, spoilers out of is this um it was an episode about story. Like one of the creators, Dan Harmon of Community and of Rick and Morty, has this very specific story structure that he follows in all of his things. If you ever do it, just like on YouTube, he has a video. Go to Dan Harmon's story, and it's based off of the hero's journey archetype. And they spend this whole episode making fun of it, so that it gets really convoluted and really complicated. But it's this commentary on storytelling and all that kind of stuff. And the there's a there's a point where they 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 have like this literal like altar call, and Rick and Morty pray the sinner's prayer. And I just thought it was the funniest thing because it was also really haunting because they got the wording and the verbiage and at least my experience of that whole thing like spot on. And it was just I got a kick out of that episode. I thought it was hilarious. I really enjoyed it because personally. And then they had like after they say this, they say the sitter's prayer, all these old Bible characters like or versions of them because the copyright or whatever come in. So it's like Salty the Psalm Book and the Veggie Tales, like all the characters celebrate them being saved, and it's fantastic. It was so freaking hilarious. Yeah, Janelle, Adult Swim, some of their stuff can get pretty out there. I forgot to tell Alan when he was on here, but Alan recommended to me the Midnight Gospel. It's a new animated series on Netflix, and it takes basically like it takes podcast audio and then they animate around the audio. So it's really like the one that I watched was there was a podcast interview with Dr. Drew, and while they're having this interview and this talk about psychedelics, they're fighting off this zombie apocalypse in a different dimension. It's very I honestly don't know what I think about it. I was intrigued enough to get through the episode, but it's just this weird thing where you're listening to this kind of mundane podcast audio. No offense to us here at I Rent a Cast, and then surrounded by this like very elaborate animated scenario. It's very interesting. I liked it. I think it's worth checking out at least once just to see. All right. Well, I think we'll wrap up my check for this week. Thank you all for joining us. William and Janelle in particular, thank you for indulging me and letting me just talk about movies and stuff that I love. We'll be back. I'll be back next week. Again, I'm not sure. It'll probably be solo me for a little bit, but we'll see. If you have any other times that might work better, let us know. We're not committed to this time, but we're probably committed to this. Probably committed to this format. Just having a place where we can kind of check in and have some um, lightness or whatever. So yeah, don't forget that tomorrow at 5 we are going to be doing our continuing the conversation. So we're going to have this kind of the continuing the conversation on our most recent episode, the final episode in our truth series. And yeah, so stay tuned. Don't forget to check out the website and keep following us, and we'll keep you up to date on how things are moving forward with the show. Uh, we all really love this work, so we're hoping to do more. Um, Janelle, I hijacked all these mic checks. No, you engage with these mic checks, so we appreciate it. Uh, so yeah, um, thank you. Have a great week. I hope that I don't know. I'm not good with that stuff, but have a good week, and hopefully we can. Well, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow, and if not, then keep subscribe to the podcast. Tell a friend. Uh, yes, we're having a weed smoking combos about truth. Yeah, we get that comment a lot. I don't know. I mean, it's only true for like half of us, maybe. Just joking. I'm not making any comments about who does what, but yeah. So thank you all for joining us. I'm going to sign off for this week. Hopefully, I'll see you next week for Sunday Mic Check. And again, if you haven't checked, if you end up signing Letterbox, find me. It's on my same social media app, so it's just at Jeff Manili. It's just my name. Um, but check it out. So have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.